I am recording this in case I don't make it back. At least there will be some record. Maybe you will have a chance. My name is David, and I've been working as a detective for 12 years. I'm good at my job. I even have a 95% clearance rate. That means that I've solved over 90% of my cases. The national average is 43. My nickname at the department is the Preacher. Funny, 'cause I don't even believe. Before my father died, though, he gave me the cross he always wore and made me promise I would never take it off. Any other time, I would have argued with him. Whenever I look in the mirror and see it, I tuck it away under my shirt. It always seems out of place, like it doesn't belong. I mention it because of what happened last Thursday. Thursday night, a case was reassigned to me. A woman had been found dead in the basement of an abandoned church. Her body had already been taken to the coroner, so I made myself a cup of coffee and grabbed my jacket on the way out the door. While I waited for the coroner to return, I examined the dead woman. Slowly moving around the table, I saw no obvious cause of death. Pretty, 20s, blonde, no blood under the fingernails, no signs of struggle. Nothing. So I walked over to one of the metal chairs, sat down, and waited for him to return. I closed my eyes for a moment, giving them a rest from the harsh glare of the overhead lights. When I glanced back at her, that's when I saw 2 marks on her neck. How had I missed them? I walked to her side, not taking my eyes from the 2 marks on her throat. But as I leaned down to examine her, I found myself looking at nothing. There was nothing there. I thought of the scene of the homicide, an old abandoned church on Canal Road. A homeless man had been sleeping in the choir loft when he heard a woman screaming, so he ran outside and eventually flagged down a passing police car. They found her on the stone floor of the church basement. I watched the sun go down as I drove over to the scene of the church, where the woman had been killed the day before. All the other officers had left, and I was alone, in the quiet. Pushing open the large oak doors of the church, I stared up at the altar. It had been many years since the place had been abandoned. Maybe it was the cold, stone face of the statue staring down at me, but I began to feel uneasy. I pulled myself together and headed down the stairway at the back of the church. It was pitch black, and as my flashlight flickered, I cursed myself for not bringing an extra one. I made my way down the circular stone stairway and found myself in front of a heavy oak door. A large carving of a cross had been scratched out. Pushing the oak door open slowly and with some effort, I peered into the darkness of the basement. Ducking under the caution tape, I saw an old candle and a set of matches nearby. Striking a match, I lit the candle and illuminated the room before me. Although the body had been removed, I could still feel a sense of death around me. Kneeling down to examine the chalk outline on the ground before me, I put my hand where her body had been and closed my eyes, trying to picture her last moments. Something dark flashed inside my mind, and I got this feeling like something lives here and maybe it's coming back. Pushing those thoughts out of my mind, I examined the room carefully and found two things of importance. The first, a silver cross, like the one my father had given me, on the ground of the basement. While a cross in a church is nothing out of the ordinary, this one was different. Its surface was burnt, charred, like it had been set on fire and just left to burn. I picked it up carefully and bagged it as evidence. Using the candle to light my way, I came across something else out of place. A word scribbled on the wall, barely even visible in the darkness. I wrote the letters into my notebook. Utarevson. Later that night, back at home, I sat in front of my desk and stared at the burnt cross. Opening up the notebook, I tried to make sense of the letters on the wall. Maybe it had been there for years. Utarevson. As I stared out my kitchen window into the darkness of the forest, it occurred to me that maybe the letters were mixed up somehow. Moving the letters around for a few minutes, I realized I had neglected to do the most obvious thing. Maybe the word was backwards. As I wrote the word out, my excitement was gone as quickly as it had come. A sense of dread came over me as I looked down at my notebook. Nosferatu. This will be the end of my recording for tonight. I'm going back to the church. I have to. There has to be some explanation. God, I hope I'm wrong. If I make it back, I will record another update. But if I don't, maybe you will be able to pick up where I left off. Nosferatu. Nosferatu.